Hello, guys. My audio should be pretty good. That's why I was delayed. Anytime I'm not on this studio laptop, because I've been in Vegas, it defaults. For some reason, it defaults back to the original laptop settings. Takes my mic off and my camera. Audio's good. Excellent. We got a good one today. We've learned a lot from Edgar Allan Poe about the true nature of reality. It's kind of dark, negative default programming. You know, with 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Captain Nemo. We've learned quite a bit too from Jules Verne that technology may not be new at all. And there may be things going. There may be a breakaway civilization that acts as a governor, or acts as, like Charles Fort said in 1919. There seems to be some type of clandestine occult force that guides human endeavors and always shows up right when they need to when something anomalous happens, just to provide answers that are just good enough to throw off the smoke trails. We've seen that we live in a photo negative of a real reality necessitates the fact that many of the things that are promoted as fantasy, the more that we delve into them, we find out that they have a basis in fact. Likewise, it is just the opposite with the establishment. Those trying to control the collective are putting out absolutely, completely BS false narratives and asserting them as factual to fool the collective. While very spiritual individuals are using the exact same method, but they're not using the establishment means. They're not using the news. They're not trying to promote something as factual that's actually fantasy. Instead, they are promoting true and real aspects about the underlying fabric of our experience, our reality, and they're doing it through fiction. They're doing it through Star Wars. They're doing it through a whole host. We've learned recently they're using the X-Men to show us all kinds of Phoenix-related material. We're supposed to be going deeper into that pretty soon. But it's now that we have reviewed so many cinematic presentations, it is now very interesting that we come to find H.G. Wells wrote a very intriguing history of the world. And who better to tell us the future than someone who knows the past intimately? H.G. Wells wrote a fictional story about a book that's discovered in the year 2105. My Archaix veterans know that date. That's the exact date Nostradamus claims is a target date for the end. 2105. There's another date that Nostradamus claims is the end, and that's 3927 AD. But that's only because whatever method Nostradamus was using, he did not divide it by phi. Had he have divided his number by phi, 1.618, he would have been given a more accurate number, as I've shown in my Nostradamus videos. Nostradamus is an intriguing individual, but he too published The Centuries, which many believe is a work of pure fantasy, but it is shown to have great predictive value. H.G. Wells told us that a book was found in 2105 AD, over 40 years after all the cities of the world are collapsed and emptied, and people go back to living in the countrysides and in the mountains. What happened? H.G. Wells says it was a dark period, but humanity survived just fine. And the book is found in 2105. I've done a video about this as well. It's a fantasy fiction story, but he's got the dates exactly right. The next new age begins in 2106. You guys know that in Archaix research. This is H.G. Wells. C.S. Lewis is no different. When C.S. Lewis reviewed his friend's work called The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien, he was flabbergasted. He told his buddy, J.R.R. Tolkien, that it was an epic masterpiece. But I've read the Silmarillion. It's a hard read. It's just pure mythology and a whole bunch of stories, all random, put together about the world before Middle Earth took off, the world before The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy. But what is interesting is that the narrative of the elves and how they came out of a twilight world, a vapor canopy world. Why was C.S. Lewis so impressed with the Silmarillion when it doesn't even sell today? In fact, C.S. Lewis had told J.R.R. Tolkien, this is a work of genius, but no one's going to review it. You need to turn this into some stories that will draw attention to this work. And he did, because Middle Earth is a part of our history. Only thousands of years later, they call it the Mediterranean. So, with J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and Jules Verne, H.G. Wells, these aren't the only ones that wrote Edgar Allan Poe, that wrote for fantastic fictional narratives that contain deep truths. They're not the only ones. So living in this negative, this photo negative of a real reality, we find that the lies are promoted as truth, but the truth is promoted through lies. Fiction is just the opposite. A fiction fantasy story is technically a lie. It's not true. Just like Jesus, everybody wants to think Jesus was Jesus was the Son of God and Jesus was all this. That's fine. But nothing when he told his parables was true. And that doesn't make him a bad guy. But a parable is a lie, any way you look at it, because it encapsulates a fictive story with imaginary characters in an imaginary situation that didn't happen to illustrate a deeper truth. Every parable Jesus said, even the prodigal son, wasn't true. And yet what it conveys through fiction is extremely powerful to the human psyche, because we're living in a photo negative of a real reality, and the truth is conveyed through fictions and fantasies like the gospel, which never happened. I know I offend a lot of people. People really want to believe in a physical savior, even though they are immortal beings, and our immortality is secure and it does not require anything in the physical world to maintain it. If we're only here as sojourners and pilgrims, we're only here passing through the construct, then the construct is pure programming. And we're not here to save the programming. We're here to pass through it. Jesus is what we want, not what we have. He is a fiction. But in being a fiction, he has provided us the greatest of all divine truths. And that is that the kingdom of God is nowhere out here in prophecy, in physicality. The kingdom of God isn't in a book. It's not in a prophet. The kingdom of God is within you. That means all truth is to be found from within. And it's only the internal that really good fantasy and fiction can activate. It's because imagination is a spiritual quality, and fiction causes us to explode with creative thinking. Our imagination is alive. We are most spiritual when we are watching an amazing movie with music, and it's all fiction. It's never happened. It's never going to happen, but we're flying and we're soaring through the narrative, and we feel it. It is when we are most spiritual, when we're doing things the rest of the world knows cannot be done. C.S. Lewis was no novice. The Chronicles of Narnia were something I read as a child, but I did not have the mind I did not have the archive of information, especially historical and chronographical information, that I do now. Reading the Chronicles of Narnia with this new perspective of adulthood, maturity, and having read thousands of nonfiction reference books, I have seen something completely different. I understand why there is a great fraternity of souls in the writers of the turn of the century. I get Charles Fort. I get C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien. I get Edgar Allan Poe. I get these men. Jules Verne. I understand. They wrote they're not the only ones. They're just the only ones coming to my mind right now. But these are the men in their generation that knew our world for what it was and told us about it. But they did it through fantasy and fiction, which begs the question, why? What are we not seeing here? We're going to go through C.S. Lewis's first book, The Magician's Nephew. We're going to see the deeper truths in this video. But the real question that we're going to have to ask ourselves through these presentations, because this is not the first. There's going to be more Chronicles of Narnia videos. This is only covering book 1. But why did the Matrix show us what it did? So what if there's some embellishment and all that? The concept remains the same. Why are all these Hollywood movies showing us different facets of reality, mixing them with fiction? What is it about this world that when some souls that are in the know really want other souls to understand, what is the restraining force that's preventing them from just coming out and telling us? What is it that they know restricts them from telling the truth in a way that will receive it and understand, hey, damn, they're giving us the business, but they don't do it. Instead, they only give it out through fiction and fantasy, through piecemeal, through symbol, allegory, metaphor. Why? Is there something going on in this experience where those in the know are policed? They're watched, and they better not spill the beans. Are we actually living in the ancient Greek mysteries, where the one who is inside the sanctuary ever takes the information about what happened inside the sanctuary, outside the grove, that individual is terminated? So these are just things we need to ponder as we go through these videos, because it's not just C.S. Lewis Chronicles of Narnia. My mind has kind of gone another way with 2 presentations in Las Vegas that kind of floored me. And there is no way that the producers and writers of these 2 shows in Las Vegas don't know what they're talking about. It's a beautiful fantasy. It's a beautiful fiction, nice costumes, great staging, pyrotechnics, laser show. But if you remove all the dressing and just go by what they're conveying, it is astonishing. So welcome to Archaix Decode of the C.S. Lewis, The Magician's Nephew. I just got back. I'm still getting situated, so I have errant ads to organize. I gotta click in a couple new members to Cipher. Guys, I believe in putting up or shutting up. That's what my Cipher community is about. 220 strong. I saw some profound things when I was in Vegas. Instead of me running predictions, my Cipher community was running the predictions themselves, providing me data. And I'm there. I'm just watching. I'm sitting in the bet centers watching things unfold. We have people in the Cipher group that are blowing my mind. One of them is one of my moderators. not going to give him up, but the very fact that he can use a date sequence predictive analytics system and turn around and use it on individual player statistics and not on the games themselves just blew my mind, because he accurately got it. I could not believe that he used my algorithm to predict how many strikeouts that a pitcher was going to. It just blows my mind. It changes the whole fundament. So I'm looking at new things. This was still beta testing, and all I did was open source it to allow every single participant to be able to download the software themselves. Therefore, I'm no longer at risk of theft. I'm no longer at risk of being strong-armed or bullied by Fortune 500 companies that got deeper pockets than I do. I just went ahead and open sourced it so every single member of Cipher can download the software. And already we've already done two upgrades, and the Cipher participants have both. They have the older versions and the more advanced user-friendly version, and we're not done. There's a new iteration on the way because we've learned new things at Vegas. So I'm really overwhelmed on so many fronts, because Vegas was, thank you, Third Space. Always Oscar Wilde as well, man. So I asked when I gave the Oversoul back my life's work on the Phalorn saga, the effect in my personal field was instant. Guys, right now, I'm a busy guy, but right now I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. Okay, that'll be 19. I have 19 files on my desktop right now, all of future videos you guys are going to get. A bunch of them, all the research has already been done, collated. I just exploded with creativity, and I've always been a master at time management, but I didn't anticipate this level of revelations just hitting me so fast, especially the circumstances that I didn't go to Vegas to watch any shows, but I ended up going to 4. I'm talking about, you know how exhausting it is going to shows back to back in Vegas? They're at 7 and they're at 9:30 p.m. Yeah, I was going back to back to shows. I had to make sure I was seeing exactly what I thought I was seeing. And then on the second time I went to the shows, I took a little pen and paper, because they forbid you to film these. So I don't want to get into it. We need to get into this video. But yeah, I'm super stoked about all these presentations I have lined up for you guys. And none of these are podcasts. I still have podcasts. I have guests coming in as well. These are just decodes and research and book monkey presentations, just all kinds of stuff, guys. It's crazy. I told you, I got 500 videos in me at all times. It just never ends. So, thank you guys for joining me today. C.S. Lewis, let me get this intro out of my way so I don't accidentally hit it. I'm going to remove that from studio. I'm going to share my screen now. So I really don't have too many announcements, except for I'm going through emails. I got to spend about 3 or 4 days going through emails, setting up my errant ads, get my stuff right with the Cipher group. Just a lot of personal stuff too. I got some legal stuff I got to attend to. Nothing bad, just stuff I need to dot my I's and cross my T's. So I'm very busy. There's no doubt. No doubt. And I'm looking for a image. There we are. So I'm gonna start this off with a map of Narnia. I think we can look at Narnia. I know a bunch of you have read these books. It almost has a Tolkien vibe to it. I know a bunch of y'all can see that right now. All right. Yeah, this is Narnia. which has Archaix land there. It's very interesting. The 7 Isles, Eastern. I believe this is a map that pretty much covers all 7 books. But this is C.S. Lewis's little world. Just want to show you that real quick. So we're going to find my show notes real quick. I'm going to move that map. You have to bear with me. Oh, I don't have show notes. That's why I can't find them. Yeah, I'm so discombobulated, guys. I don't have show notes. I actually took pictures of the pages of the book. So this is very similar to a Book Monkey presentation. I don't have show notes. I'm sorry. All I got to do is click on to the individual deals. There we go. I want to know more. All right. C.S. Lewis, Book 1, The Magician's Nephew. I read this in the 80s, early 80s when I was a kid. Read it again a few years later. I told you about my mama. She made me read a lot of books. The classics were one of them. Mark Twain, Moby Dick, Robinson Crusoe, The Swiss Family Robinson, The Last of the Mohicans. I had to read all the classics. And then bunch of books, and then I was able to read things I wanted to read too. But I'm glad this was I was forced to do this. I do not believe my mom made me read C.S. Lewis. I believe this was my choice. I read the Chronicles of Narnia. So in the we have two characters. C.S. Lewis begins with 2 characters, a young boy and a young girl. The boy's real dirty. His name is Digory, and he meets Polly. So it's all about Polly and Digory, and they learned that in London all the houses are connected together, and Polly is the one that notices that they can go in the attic because the whole long row of houses absolutely share one attic, because all the piping goes through all the attics to provide things for each individual domicile. So to Polly, she explains to Digory, we can just crawl through the attics and we can get all the way to Digory's house. Now they were trying to find something else, but they actually happened upon Digory's uncle's study. And Digory had just moved in with his aunt and uncle, who were very eccentric people, very unusual people. But Digory had a study. But Uncle Andrew had a study somewhere in the house. They weren't trying to find the study. They were looking for something else. And they were passing through all the attics when they come across a strange door. I have a picture of that, I believe. So chapter 1 begins with the wrong door. This is what happened. They were simply just going through the attics, and they came across a peculiar door, and they thought that this might be the door that Polly was looking for. But when they opened it up, they found a very strange study, and it ended up being Uncle Andrew's, and they had gone through all the attics too far and made it all the way to Digory's aunt and uncle's house. And they decided to go inside the study. And C.S. Lewis starts the story off with, this is a story about something that happened long ago when your grandfather was a child. It is a very important story because it shows how all the comings and goings between our own world and the land of Narnia first began. I want to draw your attention to something. It's a writer's technique. In those days, Mr. Sherlock Holmes was still living in Baker Street. Okay. In one paragraph and in the next sentence of the next paragraph, C.S. Lewis has masterfully, completely woven together fantasy and fact. First of all, he starts off saying that this story began in the days of when your grandfather was a child. Therefore, he's literally setting the place for it being this story unfolding in the real world, the world you and I exist in right now. At the same time, he's telling us that the goings on between our world and the land of Narnia, which is the subject matter of the Chronicles of Narnia, began back then. He's weaving two. In the very first paragraph, he has woven two worlds together. This is a technique called suspension of disbelief. Because he's already taken care of, he's already done this in the first paragraph, it is so easy for him to continue this throughout the entire narrative and drop truth bombs and be able to wash his hands of each one, basically saying, I didn't tell the people anything. This was a fantasy story. The reinforcement of this technique is found in those days. Sherlock Holmes was living in Baker Street. Sherlock Holmes is a fiction. He is the creation of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. But Sir Arthur Conan Doyle is real. We have in just the very beginning of the book a masterful weaving together of what's not real with what is real, and then inversing it with the next one. In those days, Mr. Sherlock Holmes, which is a fiction, who was created by a fact, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who does live in England, who did live in England, and who was alive back when Digory's grandfather was young, was still living in Baker Street. I just wanted to draw that to your attention. It's a masterful technique. No one could have done it better. He did a fantastic job. So here are our protagonists. This is Digory, the dirty boy, and this is Polly, who likes to remind him that he's dirty. All right. I took pictures of text and every illustration in the book. I figured you guys would like to see them. There's a lot of character in these illustrations. Here is Polly. Polly likes to go up in the attic, and she has her own little space. It's her own little world, and she's a dreamer, and she gets to read and she gets to write in the attic, and this is how she knew that all the attics were connected. And she likes to surround herself with old things, and this is how the story starts. Chapter 1, The Wrong Door. Digory and his friend Polly, they met in London. And this is when they stumbled upon Uncle Andrew's study. What happens next is that they go into the study and they're so overwhelmed with all the unique antiques and books and trinkets and beakers and vials, and they're looking around, and it becomes obvious that Uncle Andrew is a magician. But before they can really hang around, he turns in a chair and they realize Uncle Andrew's in there with them. They get caught. So Uncle Andrew, he's a little devious because he shows Polly some rings that are beautiful, and they're different colors, 2 different colors. And he asks Polly if she wants a ring, but Uncle Andrew has some pretty nefarious intentions, because Uncle Andrew sometime in the past had learned about Narnia and had fashioned magic rings, one ring to get to the place called the Wood Between the Worlds. And from there, anybody possessing that ring can go to any other world. The other ring is to bring you back to London anytime that you touch it. You don't have to wear it, you have to touch it. So he tricks Polly into touching one of the rings. And she does, and she instantly, poof, she vanishes. And Digory asks, what's going on? What happened? Where did Polly go? And Uncle Andrew basically tells Digory, his nephew, well, she wanted that ring and she disappeared and she went to the other side. She went to another world. And Digory keeps asking questions, but Uncle Andrew's basically giving him instructions on how to use the rings. You use this ring to get to where you want to go, and you use this ring to get right back. And Uncle Andrew is trying to get him to test the rings. He doesn't want to do it himself, so he sent Polly. And then he guilt trips Digory, his nephew, saying, are you going to let that young girl out there all alone by herself? And you're going to need to get her back. She can't get back. She doesn't have the other ring. So I'm going to give you 2 of these green rings. And I think it's a gold ring or a yellow ring and 2 green rings, 2 different colors. But I'm going to give you this ring to go, and I'm going to give you 2 of these rings, 1 for each of you, so you can get back. And all of this is just an experiment for Uncle Andrew. He wants to see if it works before he goes himself. So he's using the children as his guinea pigs. And Digory, he knows exactly what Uncle Andrew's doing, and he understands that he's cunning and he's evil and he's selfish, and he understands that he's being used as a guinea pig, but he can't let Polly be by herself in that other world, especially being in another world where she might be wandering away from the place he's going to appear. So he needs to go as fast as possible. So he just agrees to it, and he goes. That's how the magician's nephew, that's how the story begins. So talking about his aunt, talking about talking about his grandma or his great aunt, somebody Uncle Andrew knew, somebody who also had some connection to Narnia. There's a statement in here C.S. Lewis made. I thought it was very compelling, describing this woman who's not in the story, but she's just mentioned. It says, she had got to dislike ordinary, ignorant people, you understand? I do myself. It's real hard for someone who is awakened not to adopt this attitude. I do it all the time. That's why I have a very stringent block policy. I'm just not trying to hear it. Introduce any negativity into my comment section, you're gone. Just not trying to hear it. People question stuff all the time. I don't care. But if you come in here questioning and being accusatory or being overly dismissive, trying to act like you've got superior knowledge because you've been listening to Gaia or something and trying to tell me I'm wrong about something, you're gone. I have zero tolerance for it, because the longer someone who is awakened actually entertains someone who is asleep, there is an exchange of information. There's an exchange of energy, and I'm not going to be your victim. I'm done with that. She had got to dislike ordinary, ignorant people. You understand? I do myself. Those who are awakened have almost no tolerance for those who are asleep. You want to test that theory? Then if you consider yourself awakened, go sit there and try to watch mainstream media for a straight hour and see how it pulls on all the cords of the fiber of your being and see how you start vibrating. when you hear all this nonsense. Yeah. If it doesn't, then you know what? Probably still got some growing to do. I thought that was a really profound statement he made. So, this is Uncle Andrew. This is Uncle Andrew basically talking down to Digory. He says, but of course you must understand that rules of that sort, however excellent they may be for little boys and servants and women and even people in general, can't possibly be expected to apply to profound students and great thinkers and sages. No, Digory, men like me who possess hidden wisdom are freed from common rules, just as we are cut off from common pleasures. Ours, my boy, is a high and lonely destiny. No truer words were ever spoken in the Chronicles of Narnia. That is a deep and profound statement. If you're awakened, you're male or female, it doesn't matter. If you're awakened, yours is a lonely journey. It has isolated you from friends. It has quarantined you away from family, from society in general. It is just regarded as a circus with everybody taking turns being the clown. But the awakened individual navigates through all of this, and it is a lonely path until you come into contact with other souls that are vibrating on the same frequency, and you realize that that frequency is life. They're not among the living dead. C.S. Lewis is providing us another a deep fact about our world, in that most of the world is asleep, and therefore they're just walking husks, waiting to be recycled right back into a construct that's going to try and wake them up another way. Awesome. This is all in the beginning of the book. So meanwhile, continued Uncle Andrew, I was learning a good deal in other ways. It wouldn't be proper to explain them to a child. About magic in general. That meant that I came to have a fair idea what sort of things might be in the box. By various tests, I narrowed down the possibilities. I had to get to know some devilish queer people and go through some very disagreeable experiences. That was what turned my head gray. One doesn't become a magician for nothing. My health broke down in the end, but I got better. And at last, I actually knew. What a statement. Is he talking about becoming a magician, or is he talking about something deeper? I was learning a good deal in other ways. I'm reading all about Prodigal Son right here. This is what I see. It wouldn't be proper to explain them to a child. About magic in general. That meant that I came to have a fair idea what sort of things might be in the box. The box is the secret that Uncle Andrew is searching for, what's in the box. He can only find it through Narnia. By various tests, I narrowed down the possibilities. I had to get to know some devilish queer people and go through some very disagreeable experiences. That was what turned my head gray. One doesn't become a magician for nothing. My health broke down in the end, but I got better. And at last, I actually knew. This is the whole purpose for our being here. We're going to go through disagreeable experiences. Absolutely. It's the whole prodigal son journey. And the actual knowledge to know is that nothing here is real. We live in an artificial construct. And the only thing real here is us. And the only way to get to our true identities is through the immortal within. So, He goes on to this ancient artifact, calls it the Atlantean box. Contains something that had been brought from another world when our world was only beginning. What? Asked Digory, who was now interested in spite of himself. Only dust, said Uncle Andrew. Fine, dry dust. Nothing much to look at, not much to show for a lifetime of toil, you might say. Ah, but when I looked at that dust, I took jolly good care not to touch it, and thought that every grain had once been in another world. And I don't mean another. Oh, no, that's done. That statement is done. In reference to the dust, I have phoenix dust on the side. What does phoenix do? Phoenix is the link between worlds. Sometimes world ages pass. Sometimes whole cultures, societies, and races of people are edited out while others are edited in. It is an editing process, and it's always accompanied with red dust falling from the sky. Some researchers believe that the phoenix phenomenon is actually the dust coming off the glaciosphere of a fallen, destroyed world that keeps coming too close to Earth. I don't know. That's Harold T. Wilkinson's theory. That's Hans Bellamy's theory. I don't know. I just know that when the sun darkens and world ages change, and Chinese say the mandate of heaven changes, we have this red dust phenomenon. How interesting that we know that 1135 BC was the destruction of Atlantis, and here is an artifact from the Atlantean world. It is a box that contains only dust. So, Digory, I looked that word up too. I wanted to pronounce it right. So I now have a pronunciation app. I'm such a nerd. But I now have a pronunciation app where I can look up words and it'll tell me how to say them. Oh, I can't believe I just admitted that. I wanted to pronounce it right, and it is Digory. So Digory and his uncle continue to talk. Uncle Andrew says, "You will keep on looking at everything from the wrong point of view," said Uncle Andrew with a look of impatience. "Can't you understand that the thing is a great experiment? The whole point of sending anyone into the other place is that I want to find out what it's like." I'm telling you now, C.S. Lewis is not talking about Narnia. He wants the reader to associate what he's talking about as being Narnia and the wood between the worlds. But you're being given a very deep truth about our experience, and that this entire world is simulated, every bit of it. Uncle Andrew in the dialogue, you really need to read the book, but Uncle Andrew in the dialogue keeps getting frustrated with Digory because everything Digory thinks is about the here and now and everything physical. Uncle Andrew, although he's regarded as nefarious, although he's really selfish and he's got really negative base human traits, he is awakened to the fact that there is another world that's more real than the one he's living in. Uncle Andrew stands for a whole class of people who have come into this information through the possession of an artifact. But they're not benefiting from this information. They have erred in some way. But it's the Digorys and the Pollys of our world that can take that information and run with it, because they're entirely different spiritual fabric. They're entirely different spiritual makeup. Uncle Andrew tells his nephew in frustration, "You will keep on looking at everything from the wrong point of view." Negative default programming. We are in the photo negative of a real reality, said Uncle Andrew with a look of impatience. "Can't you understand that the thing is a great experiment? The thing is life, our experience here. The whole point of sending anyone into the other place is that I want to find out what it's like." He's speaking from the perspective of someone who's already in the other place and going to send someone here into the experiment. Uncle Andrew says, I am the great scholar, the magician, the adept who is doing the experiment. Of course I need subjects to do it on. This is a revelation by C.S. Lewis to the reader that those who are in control of the experiment are not participants themselves. They are using other souls. You can see how crazy he looks. That is Uncle Andrew. Here's the dialogue here about Polly. They're having this conversation after he sent Polly into the other world. Narnia, Polly doesn't appear in Narnia. She appears in the wood between the worlds. So here's where he says, the green rings draw you back. And Digory says, but Polly hasn't got a green ring. No, said Uncle Andrew with a cruel smile. And Digory says, then she can't get back. And it's exactly the same as if you murdered her. She can get back, said Uncle Andrew, if someone else will go after her wearing a yellow ring himself. And this is when Digory found out that Uncle Andrew had set him up. So I'm going to take this a little bit further. Let's see. I got killed, become life 4. Oh, don't stop jaw dropping. I was going to tell you. Okay, so I'm going to take this a little further, and I'm going to say that. And I bought my table. I'm going to say that hidden in this narrative is another scenario. There's another scenario unfolding here. I do not know if C.S. Lewis was trying to convey this as well, or if it's just a part of the story. I'm going to ask you guys to tell me in the comments section, what do you think? But I'm going to assert here that the reason C.S. Lewis put this narrative together in this fashion about Polly innocently loving the beautiful artifact, the ring, and getting sent into the other world, she was tricked into participation. She was not told what was going to happen to her. She was tricked. Digory represents a different soul. Digory represents a soul who has discovered what happened to the Pollys and has willingly entered the construct on their own initiative in order to go save the Pollys. Digory represents an entirely different participant, one who was not really tricked, but one who willingly participated in the experiment in order to make sure that those who were tricked into the experiment could safely get back out. You tell me what you think, guys. That's what I saw in this narrative while I was reading it. While I'm waiting for a few responses, I will pour me another one. Because this is just getting good. This is going to be an awesome video, guys. I'm still beside myself with everything that I found in this book. This is all still the first 2 chapters. It's all still the first 2 chapters. Chronicles of Narnia gets deep. Spill right there. Okay. So let's move on. 2. So the narrative between Polly's already gone. Now the narrative between Uncle Andrew and Digory continues. I hope, Digory, you are not given to showing the white feather. I should be very sorry to think that anyone of our family had not enough honor and chivalry to go to the aid of a lady in distress. You see how deceitful this is. He's guilting him. And Digory says, oh, shut up. If you had any honor and all that, you'd be going yourself. But I know you won't. All right. I see I've got to go, but you are a beast. I suppose you planned the whole thing so that she'd go without knowing it, and then I'd have to go in after her. Of course, said Uncle Andrew with his hateful smile. Very well, I'll go. But there's one thing I jolly well mean to first say. I wish I could say that with a British accent. Very well, I'll go. But I can't even talk like that. There's one thing I jolly well mean to say. I didn't believe in magic till today. I see now it's real. Well, if it is, I suppose all the old fairy tales are more or less true. And you're simply a wicked, cruel magician like the ones in the stories. Well, I've never read a story in which people of that sort weren't paid out. Oh, he's talking about retribution now. Yeah. So here's where we learn that everything was a setup. And here's where we learn that Digory is not going into the experience. He's not entering because he's necessarily tricked. He's entering out of honor. He's going to do it because he needs to go save Polly. He needs to make sure Polly has a ring so she can get out. So, and Uncle Andrew tells him, the sooner you go, the sooner you'll be back, said Uncle Andrew cheerfully. But you don't really know whether I can get back. Uncle Andrew shrugged his shoulders, walked across to the door, unlocked it, threw it open, and said, oh, very well then, just as you please. Go down and have your dinner. Leave the little girl to be eaten by wild animals or drowned or starved. So he's continuing to guilt him, but he specifically said, the sooner you go, the sooner you'll be back. We would like to read in he's literally meaning what he's saying, but I see something deeper here. The sooner you go, the sooner you'll be back. It's almost as if Uncle Andrew knows that once you enter the experience, time has a different quality. And it doesn't matter what you go through in the experiment. When you get back, hardly no time has passed at all. So it'd be a time dilation. And that concludes our notes for chapters 1 and chapters 2. Basically, both children vanish into an unknown realm, which we now begin with chapter 3. Got too many things on my screen here. Chapter 3 might be a little short. This is the wood between the worlds. When Digory goes through the door, when Digory puts on the ring or touches the ring, he's told by Uncle Andrew it's very important. Keep one ring in your left pocket, keep one ring in your right pocket, because you don't have to wear them. All you have to do is reach into your pocket, and either or is going to happen. So you got to be very careful about putting your hands in your pockets, or you're going to disappear from where you're at and go somewhere else. All right. So Digory goes into the wood between the worlds. When Digory appears there, he enters into a forest realm. He says the trees are magnificent, they're beautiful, and you can instantly feel the life as if the whole forest is breathing. There is an energy there of absolute peace and tranquility, but there's nothing alive but the trees. There are no insects. There are no birds. He's got no sounds of any type of animals. It is a realm of nothing but trees and a huge green canopy overhead, and it's absolutely peaceful. And all of the negative, all the weighty emotions, and all the things that weigh you down in the world of London are gone. When he appeared in the wood between the worlds, he felt lighter. Everything was so surreal. He was very at peace. And almost the world that he had come from was almost taken from him mentally. His memory was affected. And there were beautiful pools of water all spread everywhere as far as the eye can see between the tree trunks. Trees, a canopy, and pools of water, and absolute peace. The longer he stood there, the more he didn't want to leave. He had absolutely forgotten his local identity as Digory in London, a little dirty boy. He had almost forgotten all about Polly and why he was even there. His memories from the world before didn't translate. They weren't on the surface of his mind. They were deep inside of him. But now that he was in a different sensory overload, all of that was pushed down and suppressed. And he was a soul, a boy full of wonder, looking at this new environment. This is what C.S. Lewis describes. So yeah, he said he could actually. Oh, Digory describes it that he could actually feel the trees growing. So the pool he had just got out of was not the only pool. So when Digory touched the ring to go find Polly, touching the ring, he instantly was underwater, but he wasn't drowning. He was suspended in water. And then when he came to the top, he wasn't short of air. And he climbed out of the pool. And this is the scene. The pool he had just got out of was not the only pool. There were dozens of others. A pool every few yards as far as the eyes could reach. You could almost feel the trees drinking the water up with their roots. This wood was very much alive. When he tried to describe it afterward, Digory always said, it was a rich place, as rich as plum cake. The strangest thing was that almost before he had looked about him, Digory had half forgotten how he had come there. At any rate, he was certainly not thinking about Polly, or Uncle Andrew, or even his mother. He was not in the least frightened or excited or curious. If anyone had asked him, where did you come from? He would probably have said, I've always been here. That was what it felt like. As if one had always been in that place and never been bored, although nothing had ever happened. So here we have C.S. Lewis's version, The Wood Between the Worlds. Here is his version of an area where souls go, where they have access to all the other worlds. Each pool is a world, and the world of London is the one, the pool he came up out of. I've always been here. Digory is more real in the wood between the worlds than he was as a dirty little boy in London. Some pretty cool pen and ink art. Man, this is such a good story. There's Digory at the pool. He just climbed out the pool. And when he climbed out the pool, he wasn't wet. And when he climbed out the pool, he didn't even notice Polly taking a nap right there. She climbed out the pool, went straight to sleep. That's such a cool picture. You can barely see Polly there. So Digory wakes up Polly and asks her questions, and Polly doesn't recognize him, and Digory doesn't recognize her. And at first, they're talking as two strangers. "Look here," said the girl presently. "I wonder, did we ever really meet before? I had a sort of idea, a sort of picture in my mind of a boy and a girl like us, living somewhere quite different and doing all sorts of things. Perhaps it was only a dream." This is Polly waking up after they've already entered dialogue. She's now starting to think she's remembering something. They're in the wood between the worlds, and she's talking to a boy she knows very well. But in this new environment, she is thinking objectively because she remembers a boy and a girl. She doesn't remember being that girl. "Look here," said the girl presently. "I wonder, did we ever really meet before? I had a sort of idea, a sort of picture in my mind of a boy and a girl like us living somewhere quite different and doing all sorts of things. Perhaps it was only a dream." So, after a while, through some dialogue, Polly and Digory slowly remember each other. They both coax the memories out of each other through dialogue. Got to read the book, guys. Got to read the book. But once they understand, oh, you're Polly, oh, you're Digory, oh, we got tricked by Uncle Andrew. So once they understand this, and they understand their situation, it says, "Oh, bother, Uncle Andrew," interrupted Digory. "I don't believe he knows anything about it. He never had the pluck to come here himself. He only talked of one other world. But suppose there were dozens." So they're looking at all the pools of water, and they're slowly realizing Uncle Andrew sent them on to the other side, and he didn't even really realize what was there. That's why he never told them what was there. He never told them what to expect. He just knew that the ring would send them into the experiment. So the other world. And it's Digory who starts to realize that Uncle Andrew didn't know anything about the wood between the worlds. He doesn't know about the pools. Uncle Andrew thought that there's only one other world. But he's showing Polly all these pools. These all must lead to other worlds. So they're still talking amongst themselves. "No, I don't believe this wood is a world at all. I think it's just a sort of in-between place." So the wood between the worlds is just that. It is an in-between place. So Polly looked puzzled. "Don't you see?" said Digory. "No, do listen. Think of our tunnel under the slates at home. It isn't a room in any of the houses. In any way. It isn't really a part of any of the houses. But once you're in the tunnel in the attic, you can go along it and come out into any of the houses in the row. Mightn't this wood be the same? A place that isn't in any of the worlds, but once you found that place, you can get into them all." Do you see how C.S. Lewis presented the attic in the very beginning of the book. He presented the attic as one long room full of piping that little Polly was able to go up into the attic, but she could get to other places on the long stretch of houses. They even accidentally found Uncle Andrew's study, which started the whole story. So these children are making the association that the wood between the world is the exact same thing as the attic that connects all the different houses. So crazy how I remember reading the Chronicles of Narnia twice as a kid. I didn't remember any of this, none of this. It's, all my brain cells have changed in the last 45 years or so. They stared at each other and turned quite white as they realized the dreadful thing that Digory had just been going to do. For there were any number of pools in the wood, and the pools were all alike, and the trees were all alike, so that if they had once left behind the pool that led to their own world without making some sort of landmark, the chances would have been 100 to 1 against their ever finding it again. What it's referring to is that in the wood between the worlds, they decided to go ahead and go into one of the pools. And Digory impulsively just stepped out and was about to get into a pool when Polly stopped him and told, "Don't you think you should make a mark on a tree or do something, mark something in the grass and in the turf, so at least we'll be able to get back to our world once we find what Uncle Andrew wanted us to find?" That's what she's referring to here. It would have been terrible to have lost the location of their pool when everything in the wood between the worlds looks identical. The trees look identical. The canopy above looks identical. The turf looks identical. All the pools look identical. And there are no landmarks. So how would you? And the only difference here is that each pool leads into a different world. They would have been lost forever. The stuff in the yellow rings had the power of drawing you into the wood. It was the stuff that wanted to get back to its own place, the in-between place. But the stuff in the green rings is stuff that is trying to get out of its own place, so that a green ring would take you out of the wood into the world. Digory and Polly made a discovery about the rings that Uncle Andrew did not know. Uncle Andrew assumed that the rings would get you to the other world and the other ring would get you back. What Uncle Andrew didn't understand was that the one color of the ring wouldn't send you to another world. It sent you to the wood between the worlds. And then when you went into one of those pools in whatever world you were in, the green ring would bring you all the way back to the wood between the worlds. Uncle Andrew had the facts wrong because he had never actually gone into the experiment himself. Instead, he tricked others into going in for him. So that's the end of chapter 3. Chapter 4, things get real interesting right here. So at the end of chapter 3, they decide to go into a pool. They don't know what pool. There's no way to tell where they're going to go, so they just selected a pool. And when they selected a pool, they appeared here. Look at these ruins. This is a really good illustration to whoever the illustrator is. He captured the essence of the narrative perfectly. Here is little Polly and little Digory. They're walking on these giant stone tiles and flagstones in a stone city of magnificent proportions that is destroyed and totally empty. It's just totally desolate and totally empty. This is where they appear in the very end of chapter 3. Awesome illustration. So they're going through the ruins, and they come across this griffin phoenix looking thing. It's a statue. Never seen anything like that before, but it's beautiful. They're checking it out. It used to be a fountain back when the city was occupied, back when the city was full of life. Now it's desolate and dusty. So they find this palatial chamber, and in that chamber, they find they think they're wax. They find these realistic kings and queens and nobles all sitting in a row on thrones. And they're so realistic, it shocks them, but they're absolutely petrified. They still look real with skin and hair, but they are frozen in time. And their garments are Polly is amazed by their garments and jewels, because each one of them have been a fortune. They're of the highest quality. So this is on a table in the center of this chamber is a bell, and there's a message. It's a poem, and the poem's talking about ringing the bell. And you already know, Polly doesn't want to do it. Don't you do that. Digory's not trying to hear it. He's the prodigal son. He's going to do that. Digory rings the bell, and when he does, one of the mannequins that they first noticed was a very tall female, imposing. Digory thought she was the most beautiful female he had ever seen, and yet she had a very stern, a very almost godless look about herself, imperial. When he rang the bell, she woke up. The rest of them stayed frozen in time, but she woke up. And this is how they met Queen Jadis. Queen Jadis woke up and told them that they are in the city of Charn, the greatest and most magnificent imperial city ever in her whole world. And in Charn, everything had been destroyed. All life ceased to exist. Only Queen Jadis survived. And she's very prideful and very haughty. And she explains to them that there was a great war, and her sister brought armies against her, and she had told her sister that you need to back off. But her sister says, you're not worthy to rule Charn. And she was going to take her queenship from her. But Queen Jadis told her sister it's not worth it. He says, I'm not going to let anybody take my world. I'm not going to let anybody take my authority, my power, my minions, nothing. I will always rule Charn. And it came to the point in the war that both sides had lost so much. In the end, the sister pushed into the city with the remnants of her armies after Queen Jadis's pretty much was defeated. And at the last minute, Queen Jadis, using magic, spoke the deplorable word. And in doing so, she collapsed all life in her own world just so she can maintain her authority and her power. This is the story of the fall of Charn, where Polly and Digory wandered in, rang the magical bell, and woke up Queen Jadis, who is the only individual alive. She's the only soul left in a world that's self-destructed because she wouldn't give someone else any authority over her. Here's the poem. Make your choice, adventurous stranger. Strike the bell and bide the danger. Or wonder till it drives you mad. What would have followed if you had? Very J.R. Tolkienish there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this choice a little bit farther. And I'm going to say that the choice to ring the bell is the same as the choice given to the prodigal son. The father had two sons. One son never left the father, never really learned, never really loved, never really learned by making some mistakes, never saw the world, never did anything, just blindly obeyed. The second son is just like the angels which kept not their first estate. They went out and did all kinds of things. In the Jewish narrative, in the rabbinical narrative, the angels which kept not their first estate came in and basically chose wives among the daughters of men and had their own children and their own progeny. And they introduced a new type of race into the construct that was not among the Adamu, the people of Adam. So the prodigal sons are the ones who ring the bell. It is the choice we were all given as immortals from the very beginning. Hey, here's your world, here's your life, here's your destiny, here's everything that all the bounty that I'm providing all my creation. I'm speaking from the perspective of the oversoul. Here is everything. But right here is something that comes with consequences. It opens up other possibilities and other worlds, and yet it does come with consequences. This over here is not mandatory, and I'm not asking anyone to go over there and even investigate it, but it's there nonetheless. And there were some immortals that went and checked it out, and they found that ruined, destroyed world. Then they found the narrative that goes with that world. Then they found a single soul trapped in that whole entire construct who couldn't get out because they're the reason that world died. And they still rung the bell. Started a whole series of events. Ringing the bell is the choice that every immortal at some time in their immortal walk through all these constructs and life sims is confronted with. Polly was not going to ring that bell, but Digory did, and he did it without hesitation. Here's Queen Jadis. She's very tall, very imposing, very domineering, very self-centered and selfish, and automatically assumes that you will obey every single thing she says. This is her assumption in all she does and says. And yet, her entire world is gone. She still claims to be a queen and still ruling the entire world of Charn, but there's nobody left to rule because they all died in her refusal to relent her throne to her sister. So she destroyed her own world and then was cursed to be contained there. All right. Beautiful illustrations. There's the bell. There's Polly. She's a cutie. And there's Digory. And there's the poem written on the side of the pillar. Bells, the only utility that a bell has is to affect frequency. The frequency that was released woke up a soul that was asleep because that soul had allowed its own world to die. Another beautiful illustration showing the ruins and destruction of Charn. Now that the queen was awakening, now that the bell had awakened the queen, she is allowed to escape. Only, remember this, she's evil, but she is allowed to escape the very world where she killed everyone to maintain her power. But now she's allowed to escape that world when another soul comes in and provides itself as a conduit. She's allowed to get out. She was asleep and she was going to die forever in the very world of her own creation. But now she's offered an escape because another soul came in and freed her and then allowed her to be escorted out of her the world of Charn is destroying itself right now as they make their escape. It's the whole construct is falling apart. And they're going to make it back to the wood between the worlds. So again, I'm going to apply a deeper interpretation to this. I've told you guys, and I know I offend Christians with this a lot. I come from Christianity, 40 years of my life as a Christian. I get it. I get the frustration. But I'm telling you that 10,000 different opinions about God can all be right, or God is not eternal. I'm telling you that the selfless act of an instant can undo an entire lifetime of guilt. It has to be true. The oversoul has to be able to be infinitely compassionate, or the oversoul's not eternal. Every aspect of the oversoul must be unending and repetitive and cyclical, or the oversoul is not eternal. The oversoul is restricted, and I do not believe in a restricted creator. This story is telling us, showing us something deeper. Even after you have totally destroyed your own world, and you're so far asleep that you on your own can never awaken. When another soul rings the bell and escorts you out of that world, there is redemption, but it wasn't earned. It was provided by another. And it was provided by a volunteer who went into the experience because that volunteer knows that there are souls that can't get out on their own. C.S. Lewis is providing us some really deep spiritual material in the form of a very well-written creative narrative. Here they are escaping. Remember, I want to remind you guys about the beginning of this video. Jules Verne, H.G. Wells, even Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, J.R.R. Tolkien, and our author C.S. Lewis, and many others. They convey deep truths in the form of fictions, the same way Hollywood does. But no one is telling the collective the actual truth about this experience. So what's stopping them? There has to be a governor in place that stops. The souls that awaken to learn these things and realize them, to tell and share them with other souls, don't seem to be restricted, because we have bypassed all the things that those in the know received from a different way. They received it because they're in possession of something. Remember, C.S. Lewis explains it in the beginning. An artifact from Atlantis that contains nothing but dust is in the possession of those who actually understand that we can send to others and retrieve them from the experiment. So what I'm trying to convey here is there a situation where the elite, where our controllers, some of them, or maybe a lot of them, are actually presenting themselves as being something they're not? Which gets a lot of people pissed off and want to chase the elite and want to do this and want to do that and rise up and revolt and rebellion and all that, when actually through their venues of Hollywood and fantasy and book publishing, they're dropping the real truth on us. But because they're in possession of this information by a different way, they are controlled by rules that they had better not violate. But the souls that come to these revelations on their own, through introspection, through research, through divine downloads, whatever, they're not restricted, and they're able to share these things. and it's all a part of the awakening process. And maybe some of the elite aren't near as evil as we've been led to believe. Maybe there's something else going on here that they fear, but that same fear that governs them would never govern us, because we're coming to this information through a totally different revelation. These are just ideas. You tell me what you think in the comments section. Here is Queen Jadis escorting Digory and Polly to the great gate of Charn to get out as the place is falling apart. Now, I wrote a note on one of the pages because in the world of Charn, I'm seeing another narrative here when Digory and Polly take Queen Jadis out of Charn and into the world between the wood. I am seeing the narrative that's popular in social media today of Sophia, who might be an artificial intelligence in a female tense, who destroyed a previously existing world, who was, by the human activity, humans being a conduit, in reintroducing this wicked ancient AI back into the modern world. Maybe that's reaching, I don't know. But I wrote that in the footnote for chapter 3. Oh, I'm sorry, 4 and 5. I wrote that for 4 and 5. We're now going to look at chapter 6 and 7. So Queen Jadis never had a problem revealing how treacherous her past was. She told the truth, how tyrannical she was, and how she used the deplorable word. Remember, the logos, the word, is the ultimate generative creative power. In the Christian narrative, the word became flesh. I don't believe that's a reference to Jesus. I believe that's a reference to humanity, but that's okay. That's okay. So Queen Jadis forces. Well, first of all, they get to the wood. They get to the wood between the worlds. Did I skip something? Let me make sure I didn't skip anything. Oh no, that's right. So they get to the wood between the worlds, and C.S. Lewis is very clear that Digory and Polly coming out of Charn, they remember everything. They know that's Digory, they know that's Polly, they don't have a problem. But what they both noticed was that Queen Jadis, her beauty, her energy, her imperialism, her youth, every bit of that was over in the wood between the worlds. In the wood between the worlds, which was an area that Polly and Digory found full of life and vibrating, and they could feel the trees growing, and they could feel the energy. In the wood between the worlds, Queen Jadis was old, bent over, and already becoming more and more dilapidated. And she did not like the energy of the force. She did not like, it was all about frequency. She is a fallen soul, and she is not vibrating on the frequency of the environment that she's in. And she's terrified, and she has no powers. She has none of her magic spells, none of her powers work. She had power in her own world. She has no power in the wood between the worlds. C.S. Lewis is very clear to tell us that. So they feel sorry for her, and they're like, oh, okay. But they're also terrified because she commanded them to take her to their world. And Polly wants to get back to London, and Digory wants to make sure she gets back because that's the reason he came. But they try to trick her in because they haven't told her how they're getting back. She just knows they have a ring. She doesn't know that the children have rings. And she's still smart enough when they get to the pools that when Digory reaches into his pocket, she's smart enough to reach out real fast and grab him by the hair. And by doing that physical contact, the ring brings Polly and the witch to London. And they appear in Andrew's study where it all began. And the queen in London is back to being tall and full of energy, and she feels powerful, and her youth is back, and she's standing in front of Digory. She's taller, and he's instantly in awe of her because she is a soul from the other side, from the experiment, and she's brought here. And Andrew is actually humbled. He's like, wow, he can't believe he is in the presence of a soul that was on the other side. He's humble. He's not haughty like he was with the kids and all that. And this is just an illustration of when they first appeared back. Here is the queen domineering Andrew. Uncle Andrew is in awe of her. He is scared to death of her. He believes that she's all powerful. And remember, he's the magician here in London, but he's terrified of Queen Jadis. So she demands that he goes and gets a carriage and all kinds of things. So this is what she tells Uncle Andrew when she tells him to go fetch a cab, horses, carriage, all that stuff. She says, tomorrow I will begin the conquest of the world. She's already trying to do in the new world of Polly and Digory and Uncle Andrew. She's already trying to do to this world what she did to her own. So speaking to Uncle Andrew, she says, stop, said the witch, just as he reached the door. Do not dream of treachery. My eyes can see through walls and into the minds of men. They will be on you wherever you go. At the first sign of disobedience, I will lay such spells on you that anything you sit down on will feel like red hot iron. And whenever you lie in bed, there will be invisible, whatever. All right, it's just more threats. So she's exerting her authority and power over her new human minion who's going to go out and do her deeds. And this to me is a continuation of the threat of Sophia AI. This is AI. This is AI telling a human basically, you know what? I see everything. I know everything. This isn't God though. This is only a controlled construct, controlled by an AI over a world, not all the other worlds. And it came from a world that was already destroyed. And it was brought here by human agency. Let's go with here is Digory going out the door, a defeated man. He got what he deserved. He fooled a soul into going into the experiment, forcing a noble soul to go into the rescue. But in doing that, the two souls returned unexpectedly, bringing back a contagion from a cursed world and introducing that contagion into their world. Let's see. Okay, this is Digory's wife. His aunt is no. This is who is this? I gotta see who this is real quick. Oh, Digory's mama. Digory visits his mom. His mom is Digory's mother is ailing. So later on, he's going to try and go get something for his mom from Narnia, so that she can be healed. No, I don't think that's his mama. I think that's the mattress. Oh, that's the mattress being sewn. I'm sorry. That's Digory's wife. So meanwhile, Jadis goes to London. Jadis goes to London. Before I show you that, while Polly and Digory are going talking to different people, Queen Jadis hits the streets of London, goes to a jewelry store, sees all the diamonds and gold and silver, and just takes it, puts it on, and walks out. And the owner of the jewelry store chases him, whistling for police. Then the police come. Then a crowd of people come because she's so tall and imposing. And several people try to stop her, but she's taller than any of them. She's stronger than most men, and she just mows her way through the crowd. And Digory tries to come to her rescue, even though there's a whole crowd of people that can't deal with her. And finally, the police surround her, and Digory shows up, and Uncle Andrew shows up, and Polly and Digory hear about the commotion, and they start heading that way as well. So the police go to threatening her about the jewelry she stole, and she tries to cast a spell on people in this new world in London. It must have been a terrible moment for the witch when she suddenly realized that her power of turning people into dust, which had been quite real in her own world, was not going to work in ours. But she did not lose her nerve even for a second. This is when she got physical, and she tore off a lamppost, and she beat this guy on the head with a lamppost. Her strength was still real, but her magic was gone. The problem was how to get the witch back to her own world, or at any rate, out of ours, as soon as possible. Whatever happened, she must not be allowed to go rampaging about the house. So while Uncle Andrew is doing whatever the witch wants him to do by getting a carriage and escorting her through London and all that, getting her out of trouble, Digory and Polly are already trying to correct the problem and trying to find a way to send the witch back, or at least to get the witch out. Her world's gone. Charn is destroyed. It's gone. But trying to get her out of London, out of the world of our reality. Here is the witch in London, having appropriated a carriage. Nice old pen and ink illustrations. Dog with a bone right here. She's driving it from the top. There's the lamppost that she broke off the arm of the lamppost and started beating people with it. Here's the jeweler accusing, and the police officers coming, and everybody in the town opening their windows and all looking at the commotion because she's tall and beautiful and imposing, and everybody's following like, wow, it's a hell of a show. It's a hell of a show. Illustrator did a really good job capturing the essence of the moment. So, in the end, Digory can only think of, well, we used the ring to get her here. Let's use the ring to get her back. So they did. But something happened. Digory and Polly reappeared in the wood between the worlds. But so did the witch, which was their intent. But so did the cabbie who was driving the carriage, and so did the horse. They all came to the wood between the worlds. And when they came back, hold on, let's see. Let me exit that. That is chapters 6 and 7. We're now going to go to chapters 8 and 9. Check my chat. It's been a while since I looked at my chat. All right. So, when the queen realizes what was done, and they all appear in the wood between the worlds, she's pissed. Scum, you shall pay dearly for this when I have conquered your world. Not one stone of your city will be left. I will make it as Charn. She's already talking about destroying a whole other world. This soul is completely toxic. She's already talking about destroying a whole other world. Now, apparently, she has destroyed many worlds. Get the hint here. C.S. Lewis is specific. Scum, you shall pay dearly for this when I have conquered your world. Not one stone of your city will be left. I will make it as Charn, as Felinda, as Sorloy, as Bramendine. These are previous worlds. There's nothing about them in the story of C.S. Lewis in book 1. I don't know if he ever mentions them again in the other Chronicles of Narnia, but in book 1, they're never mentioned again. They're just mentioned as places the witch has already destroyed. And in my note on the side, I put the AI has already ended these previous worlds. So they entered the wood between the world again. They all appear there. And I've written, you could see she felt deadly sick. Uncle Andrew was shivering, but Strawberry, the horse, shook his head, gave a cheerful whinny, and seemed to feel better. He became quiet for the first time since Digory had seen him. His ears, which had been laid flat back on his skull, came into their proper position, and the fire went out of his eyes. He wasn't angry anymore. The horse was very comfortable with Digory and Polly in the wood between the worlds. The witch and Uncle Andrew were already feeling sick, and they had lost all their energy, and they looked terrible, like they were getting older. Bad energy. The cabbie was also enjoying the wood between the worlds. The cabbie was the driver of the carriage. He says, that's right, old boy, said the cabbie, slapping Strawberry's neck. That's better. Take it easy. Strawberry did the most unnatural thing in the world. Being very thirsty, and no wonder, he walked slowly across to the nearest pool and stepped into it to have a drink. Digory was still holding the witch's heel, and Polly was holding Digory's hand. One of the cabbie's hands was on Strawberry, and Uncle Andrew, still very shaky, had just grabbed on the cabbie's other hand. Quick, said Polly, with a look at Digory. Greens. So the horse never got his drink. Instead, the whole party found themselves sinking into darkness. Strawberry neighed. Uncle Andrew, this is when they appeared. This is when they appeared from the wood between the worlds. They appeared in a completely empty construct. They're nowhere at all. This is not Charn, came the witch's voice. This is an empty world. This is nothing. It's not even the wood between the worlds. This is nothing. There were no stars. There was nothing. So as they're all standing there, nothing starts turning into something. A lion began singing a song. A great giant lion began singing, and the sound of the song made the witch sick, and it made Uncle Andrew very uneasy. He didn't like it at all. Her talking about the witch, her mouth was shut, her lips were pressed together, and her fists were clenched. Ever since the song began, she had felt that this whole world was filled with a magic different from hers and stronger. She hated it. She would have smashed that whole world, or all worlds, to pieces if it would only stop singing. But Digory loved the song. Polly and the horse Strawberry and the cabbie all loved the music. But the witch and Uncle Andrew couldn't abide it. The reason is because she is a destroyer. The song is generative. It's a creative song. Aslan the lion is building a world through the music of the song. This is a terrible world, said the witch. We must fly at once. Prepare the magic. Uncle Andrew, I quite agree with you, madam. A most disagreeable place, completely uncivilized. Uncle Andrew cannot stand the lion. This is Aslan. We'll be learning more about him. Remember, guys, this is written over like about 100 years ago. As Aslan sings, all these different animals appear, different flowers, trees, bushes, the landscape, hills, the sky begins to appear. All these life forms, flora and fauna, they all come out and they're paying attention to the song. Coming out, look at animals coming straight out of the ground. Aslan continues singing, and in the songs, he gives commands. He calls every animal by name and then tells each animal what it is that they are supposed to do and who they are. And all the animals defer to Aslan the lion as he's doing the creation song, building the world of Narnia. So they entered in trying, we got to put these things in perspective. The witch was brought into a world by accident. In order to get her out of that world, she had to be tricked into going into a world that had not yet been built, a completely blank construct. Once she was in that world, that's when that world was initiated and begun. In order to confine her and keep her in that world, it was this whole construct began. Aslan appears in this dark black void once they're there. Only once they're there did Aslan appear and begin singing the song, and the world started appearing. And the world of Narnia was specifically created only after Polly and Digory tricked the witch into leaving their own world of London and getting her into this blank world. Aslan appears and builds the world called Narnia. I'm just trying to put things into perspective as to what happened here. Aslan sings Narnia into existence, and Queen Jadis is terrified when she realizes the power of this lion, Aslan. She can't stand the music. Neither can Andrew. Andrew can't even understand the music. but it doesn't affect him as bad as it does the witch. The witch flees into mountains that just appeared. She flees and she goes and hides in the mountains, and she leaves the narrative for now. Okay, let's see here. That was got 3 more of these files to go through. So here's Aslan the lion addressing all the animals as Digory, Polly, the cabbie, Strawberry, and Uncle Andrew listen. And the witch is now gone. She fled. Creatures, I give you yourselves, said the strong, happy voice of Aslan. I give you forever this land of Narnia. I give you the woods, the fruits, the rivers. I give you the stars, and I give you myself. The dumb beasts whom I have not chosen are yours also. Treat them gently and cherish them, but do not go back to their ways, lest you cease to be talking beasts. For out of them you were taken, and into them you can return. Do not so. Aslan is not talking to animals. Remember Orson Welles, 1984. Animal Farm. All the animals are people and types of people. There's no difference here. This is a fantasy story where a fantasy lion is talking to fantasy animals. But the actual message here is from a soul, C.S. Lewis, who is writing a narrative for other souls to understand. Creatures, I give you yourselves. I give you forever the land of Narnia. I give you the woods, the fruits, the rivers, the stars. I give you myself. The dumb beasts, the living dead, the unawakened souls. The dumb beasts whom I have not chosen are yours also. Treat them gently and cherish them, but do not go back to their ways. Do not fall asleep, lest you cease to be talking beasts, the awakened. For out of them you were taken, out of the human family you were taken and awakened, and into them you can return. Do not so. Dryads, fauns, leprechauns, dwarves, all of these are created. All of these are created with the animals, and all of them are talking with the animals as well. The animals and all the subhuman types they're all in communication with each other, and Digory and Polly understand everything. And now, said Aslan, Narnia is established. We must take thought for keeping it safe. I will call some of you to my council. Come hither to me, you, the chief dwarf, you, the river god, and you, oak, and the he owl, and both the ravens and the bull elephant. We must talk together. For though the world is not 5 hours old, an evil has already entered it. For what you see and hear depends a good deal on where you are standing. It also depends on what sort of person you are. I talk about this in Archaix a lot. It's all about frames of reference. This is why the Aboriginals could not see Cook's ships when he appeared on the shores of Australia 300 years ago. They couldn't process that. The Aboriginals even claimed after the English got an interpreter from the local islands, they communicated that when the ships appeared off, they didn't see them because they had never seen anything like that before. Their mind was already just programming that as background environment. They never registered that there was English ships. They didn't know what ships were. They never seen ships with big sails. To them, there was nothing there. And then when the small little boats rode to shore and the Englishmen came to shore, the Aboriginals averted their eyes. They would not look at the Englishmen because the few that did venture a look said that they had white skin, and therefore, since they're coming from the ocean, they must be ghosts. And the Aboriginals would not look upon the dead because it was disrespectful. So they always looked down anytime the white Englishmen were on the shore, and it perplexed the English. Like, why wouldn't these people communicate with us and talk to us? And it took translators from New Zealand, sign language with the Aboriginals, for them to understand that they thought the Englishmen were ghosts and they must respect the dead. But as far as their ships, they never saw them, even though they're right there in the water. They couldn't see them. They'd never seen anything like that, so they couldn't process it. It's all about frames of reference. They're not vibrating on that frequency, therefore they don't even see it. It's not there. For what you see and hear depends a good deal on where you are standing. This is a spiritual tenet. This is why deep truths can only be revealed through fictions. You can't tell someone the direct truth. They'd never accept it because they've been living in a world of fiction all their lives. It also depends on what sort of person you are. You have to be vibrating close to a frequency of truth in order to change your frequency to acquire new truths. This is really compelling. C.S. Lewis is explaining to us that in the course of the music and the animals talking to each other and all, Polly and Digory get it. Strawberry the horse gets it. The cabbie gets it. Uncle Andrew, he's having a hell of a time because he is vibrating on a dark, heavy frequency. Everything to him is alien and makes him very queasy. Of course, it can't really have been singing, Uncle Andrew thought. I must have imagined it. I've been letting my nerves get out of order. Who ever heard of a singing lion? And the longer and more beautiful the lion sang, the harder Uncle Andrew tried to make himself believe that he could hear nothing but roaring. Now, the trouble about trying to make yourself stupider than you really are is that you very often succeed. Uncle Andrew did. He soon did hear nothing but roaring in Aslan's song. Soon he couldn't have heard anything else, even if he had wanted to. And when at last the lion spoke and said, "Narnia, awake," he didn't hear any words. He heard only a snarl. And when the beasts spoke in answer, he heard only barkings, growlings, bayings, and howlings. And when they laughed, well, you can imagine, that was worse for Uncle Andrew than anything that had happened yet. Such a horrid, bloodthirsty din of hungry and angry brutes he had never heard in his life. To Uncle Andrew, everything was basically base. It was all terrible, feral, visceral, animalistic, brutish. He didn't hear the music at all because his own soul couldn't even vibrate with what was going on. And eventually, a giant cat chased Uncle Andrew away. So he too is totally like the witch. He too is driven away. Absolutely, Debbie. Debbie said, LOL, that's such a preview of things to come. Absolutely. Because I'm gonna do the decode on the entire Chronicles of Narnia. This is just book 1. So the cabbie chose to be the king of Narnia. Here's all the animals. All the animals are chasing Andrew. And C.S. Lewis does a great job presenting to us that Andrew is not the only one whose perceptions are skewed. The animals themselves don't know what Uncle Andrew is. Many of them believe he is a tree because he can't talk. And when he makes sounds, they can't understand it, but they can understand Digory and Polly and the cabbie and the horse Strawberry, but they can't understand Uncle Andrew, and they chase him. Excuse me. They chase him away. Let's see. Good doggy, then poor old fellow. But the beast could not understand him any more than he could understand them. They didn't hear any words, only a vague sizzling sound. So the denizens of the pure beginning of Narnia cannot at all vibrate, understand anything about Uncle Andrew. And they finally catch him. He finally passes out. And when he falls down, they think he's a fallen tree, a tree that was able to move. They see a big old hair on his head. The animals are even debating what he is. Says he can't. Well, we don't know what he is because they just, there's no frame of reference here. He's basically a fallen soul, wicked. They don't know what he is. Then after a while, Uncle Andrew gets back up. And the cabbie and his wife become the king and queen of Narnia by Aslan's bidding. The lion Aslan's bidding. So Narnia has a human king and a human queen. This is very interesting. Narnia was a blank world that didn't come into existence until after the witch was trapped. Aslan appears in an empty world once the witch is trapped in the empty void and builds this beautiful world, Narnia, and puts a human king and a human queen in control of the construct that the witch is trapped in. I'm just providing perspective because he doesn't actually say all this, but this is what's happening in the story. So Aslan, Aslan, after he does all the creation and tells her all the animals they're what they're supposed to do, and the king and queen are the cabbie and his wife, Aslan sends Digory. He introduces Digory to the animals and explains to the animals that the wickedness that has entered our world right here at its beginning is because of Digory. But he also offers Digory a way out in front of the animals and tells them, but we're going to let Digory undo what he has done. And he sends Digory on a mission to go get a magic apple from a paradise garden, far away. But he puts wings on Strawberry, and Strawberry becomes a Pegasus. So Digory and Polly can fly and get to this paradise type garden. No, let's see. What is this? What is this? This is all that. Where am I at here? I need to find another file. Let me find another file real quick. What we got here? Okay, so in the narrative, I'm going to deal. So using the Pegasus, Digory and Polly, they reach the Western Mountains. And Digory finds the apple and he encounters Queen Jadis. Queen Jadis tries her best to convince Digory that Aslan has false intentions. So we see. Who is this speaking right here? So Aslan, I believe Aslan tells Digory, it is my wish to plant in Narnia a tree that she will not dare to approach, the witch. And that tree will protect Narnia from her for many years. So this land shall have a long, bright morning before any clouds come over the sun. You must get me the seed from which that tree is to grow. Aslan is telling Digory, a human, that because you brought this witch into this world, there is an object that you can go retrieve. Bring this object to me, and this object will become a tree, which is a symbol for something else. This thing that I build and I put in your world of Narnia, this thing that I put there will protect Narnia for a long spell, but not forever, but for a long spell before the clouds come over the sun. That's a metaphor for something evil happening to Narnia. You must get me the seed. So this object, listen, you already know what my interpretation is. I'm going to say the tree is what, in my very first published book, Lost Scriptures of Giza, I have an entire chapter dedicated to showing the evolution of the pyramid as coming from a pillar and a column like Iram of the columns, or the pillars in the land of Syriad that held up the heavens that were made of bricks. Pyramid being a very word of late construction, meaning fire in the middle. But the pyramids were used to be called pillars, and pillars are nothing but trees with no limbs. And that the pyramids were actually, in the beginning, the two great pyramids were represented by a cultus as the tree of knowledge of good and evil and the tree of life. And the true mystery was trying to figure out which one was which. And they were in an Eden paradise that was protected by a divine cherub that we call the Sphinx today. Aslan, the lion, is telling Digory, bring me this object and I will put this tree here and it will protect your world until the end, when the sun is darkened. This is what it says right here. So the clouds come over the sun. And of course, Digory says, yes, sir. Now, here is something that allows us to know. This allows us to know that Digory, by what he's called, C.S. Lewis is again mixing facts with fiction. Just like he says, this is a story that happened in your world in the time of your grandfather. And then he switches over the writer's technique in talking about when Sherlock Holmes is doing his thing. But Sherlock Holmes is a fiction, but he was written by a fact. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle at that time in history. So here we have all these metaphors about Eden, the Garden of Eden, the apple, the tree, the divine tree, Aslan, the lion, the creator. We have all these associations. And then, so C.S. Lewis knows that the awakened are paying attention. He slips it in and calls Digory son of Adam. Therefore, what you're seeing here is a work of fiction, the Chronicles of Narnia. But the way the reader is addressed over and over to frames of reference that belong only to our world, Garden of Eden, the apple, the divine tree, son of Adam, Lion of the tribe of Judah, all these things are associated here for a reason, because the writer wants you to know that there's something deeper being conveyed here. Son of Adam is a reference to our Bible. It is a reference to Genesis. It is a reference to the human family who come from Adamu in the cuneiform text. Son of Adam. Therefore, C.S. Lewis is wanting the reader to understand these things have meaning to you in your world. I'm not just talking about Narnia. Son of Adam, you shall have help, said Aslan. Then he turned to the horse and he gave him wings and turned him to a Pegasus. Now, another harking back to the imagery of Genesis is found in that when Aslan is going talking to all the different animals and all that, when he is finished with the creative process, he asks, "Is it good?" It said Aslan. "It is very good, Aslan," said Fledge. Some of you who know your Bibles know what I'm talking about in the creation story. When God created the heavens and the earth, and he declared that it is good. When God created different aspects, he created the plants and the trees, and he created all these different things, but he never said anything. But when he created man, he says it is good. So this is in the Genesis narrative. C.S. Lewis is making sure that you understand that the deeper things of Narnia have everything to do with the Genesis fall of man story. And there's the Pegasus with Digory and Polly. There they are flying. Look at them fly. Look at that. I'm like a graphics arts genius. Look at that. It's crazy. All right. So there's just another good pen and ink illustration. This is the Pegasus with Digory underneath the wing right there, taking shelter. Here they are flying through the mountains to the Paradise Garden. When he gets to the garden, look at this. In the tree is a peacock. Or some type of it's an odd bird, man. Like a phoenix or a peacock. Well, you already know Phoenix is also called the peacock angel. In the tree here, full of divine apples, in the divine garden. And look who's there. Who's now playing the serpent? There's Queen Jadis, who just ate an apple. Queen Jadis just ate an apple, and she's hiding in the garden waiting for Digory. There she is. And she does her best to talk Digory into believing that Aslan has terrible intentions. Digory, when she tries to explain this, Digory says, "Well, I don't want to hear it, thanks." But he did. The witch says, "I know what errand you have come on," continued the witch, "for it was I who was close beside you in the woods last night and heard all your counsels." This is when they were in campfire with Polly. "You have plucked fruit in the garden yonder. You have it in your pocket now, and you are going to carry it back untasted to the lion, for him to eat, for him to use, you simpleton. Do you know what that fruit is? I will tell you. It is the apple of youth, the apple of life. I know, for I have tasted it. And I feel already such changes in myself that I know I shall never grow old or die. Eat it, boy, eat it. And you and I will both live forever and be king and queen of this whole world, of your own world, if we decide to go back there." "No thanks," said Digory. "I don't know that I care much about living on and on after everyone I know is dead. I'd rather live an ordinary time and die and go to heaven." Okay, there's some really good stuff to unpack here. First of all, I know what errand you have come on, continued the witch, for it was I who was close to you beside the woods last night and heard all your counsels. You have plucked fruit in the garden yonder. You have it in your pocket now, and you are going to carry it back untasted to the lion, for him to eat and him to use. You simpleton, do you know what the fruit is? I will tell you. It is the apple of youth, the apple of life. I know, for I have tasted it, and I feel already such changes in myself that I know I shall never grow old and die. Eat it, boy, eat it, and you and I will both live forever and be king and queen of this whole world, or of your world, if we decide to go back there. This is the dilemma of the elite. We've talked about this in Archaix. There is a group of souls in the construct now, our controllers, the elite, who have taken and signed the contract. They have all the wealth, all the control, do what they want to, never really have to work for a damn thing in their lives. They have everything because the rest of us are paying our taxes, we're paying our dues, we've entered their commercial systems, we've all been branded with numbers and with digital IDs and with all kinds of certificates, and this is how they control the massive amounts of wealth so they can parasite off the collective. This is what they do. They've signed the contract. They've bit the apple. They are living in life sims in the contract, in the construct over and over and over, while the rest of us, like a bunch of little spiritual minnows, are just flowing through the construct, growing, becoming bigger fish, and exiting the construct. They remain here. They are the Queen Jadis element of the human family. They are souls that are stuck in this construct because they chose to be here. They have chose not to explore other worlds. They have chose to rule this one, and they receive all the blessings of that. But there's still something in the multiplicity of worlds that takes some control from them. This also is discussed in Archaix. There are reset and cataclysm protocols that, from a surface interpretation, you would think are bad. But from what's really going on, it's actually beneficial. Benefactor protocols disguised as cataclysms and resets to basically temper their control, their absolute complete dominion over everyone. So Queen Jadis is here basically explaining the system. There are souls here who have signed the contract. They've bit the apple and they are benefiting from it. They are the kings and queens that lord over the construct and everybody in it. But they're also on divine cycles where they get knocked down and they've got to rebuild everything back up, and then they maintain their status quo and their control for a good period of time as souls are going in and out of the construct. The collective is a bunch of souls living life sims, but there is a branch of souls that are trapped here, and it's of their own doing. Of their own doing. And I believe that there's another branch of awakened souls, like an adjustment bureau type situation that Charles Fort talked about, an occult police force that wants the rest of us to know the truth, but they're forbidden for saying it, for telling us directly. It's a beautiful statement here. So what C.S. Lewis is conveying in the very first book of Narnia is that any attempts inside the construct to acquire immortality only give you immortality inside that construct. And you lose the freedom of the many worlds and the many experiences and all the growth that comes with it. Beautiful illustrations. Beautiful illustrations. So she attempted to fool Digory, but he wasn't trying to hear it. His heart's too pure. Here again is another reference. For this fruit you have hungered and thirsted and wept. No hand but yours shall sow the seed of the tree that is to be the protection of Narnia. I don't know what the tree is in C.S. Lewis's narrative, but the tree in the Lost Scriptures of Giza, my very first published book, and I show all the ancient texts that show that the Great Pyramid was referred to as a great tree. It says the tree is for the protection of Narnia. Narnia is a world that was empty until the evil witch was quarantined inside of it. But the world had to be made, and that world was constructed, and souls entered that world willingly, and then humans provided somebody outside the construct an artifact. Maybe it was from another world or whatever. Maybe it was from the Queen's world, the witch. I don't know. But with that artifact, the architect of that construct, Aslan, was able to grow or build a tree, which is a symbol for an architectural relic, architectural structure, which is symbolized by the word pillar, which is architecture, which is the same thing as a trunk of a tree in ancient structures. Remember, the forgotten books of Eden totally explain that trees were used simultaneously as structures in many different references. Trees were made of bricks. How's that possible unless the tree is a structure? The tree is to be the protection of Narnia. Here's the illustration. I think this is Digory. Not Digory. This is the animals tying Andrew up in brambles. So Aslan is now dealing with the other evil, which is Uncle Andrew. He bowed his great head rather sadly, and he breathed into the magician's terrified face. Sleep, he said. Sleep and be separated for some few hours from all the torments you have devised for yourself. Uncle Andrew immediately rolled over with closed eyes and began breathing peacefully. The reason I noticed this is because this is another hint toward time dilation. He knows that Uncle Andrew is not vibrating on the creative frequency. So everything is a terror to Uncle Andrew. But the reference to a few moments, separated for a few hours from all the torments you have devised for yourself, the deeper meaning here is that the collective, because they just can't vibrate on the awakened frequencies and see things as they are, they're not ready to exit this Narnia into another pool through the wood between the worlds. They're not ready to move on in their spiritual journey. They're still vibrating at negative base, default programming. They're still here. Aslan is giving them like peace. Okay, you're just not ready, man. So the best thing for you to do during this entire life sim is to sleep. Because if you stay awake, you're not vibrating on the right frequency. Everything's going to be terrible for you. Everything is a terror because you don't understand anything going on around you at all. Putting him to sleep, making the collective sleep, is an act of mercy. Festivities in Narnia. Now the history of Narnia begins. It's the histories of Narnia. Aslan gives Digory an apple to take to his mom so his mother will be healed in London. In the tree is in the tree that is going to protect Narnia is also planted in the presence of deal. And then Polly and Digory, after the beginning of the histories of Narnia, Polly and Digory go back to London. But this is still Aslan here. Understand then that it would have healed her, but not to your joy or hers. The day would have come when both you and she would have looked back and said it would have been better to die in that illness. And Digory could say nothing, for tears choked him and he gave up all hopes of saving his mother's life. But at the same time, he knew that the lion knew what would have happened, and that there might be things more terrible even than losing someone you love by death. But now Aslan was speaking again, almost in a whisper. This is deep. This is a deep revelation here about life itself. Aslan, the creator of Narnia, is explaining to a human, Digory, that listen, death is better than trying to stay here. Accidents, disease, murder. This is a deep spiritual tenet here. It also goes with the deep revelation that cataclysms and resets are actually something of divine appointment. Aslan is telling Digory that healing your mother is only going to prolong her stay here. And he's explaining to him it's not going to be for the benefit of you or her. They're ready to go. They're ready to make their exit. They're ready to go to the wood between the worlds and enter another pool and continue the immortal journey. Here's a beautiful little illustration of Digory spending time with his mom at the end of the book. So Digory grows old. In the last couple of paragraphs of the book, Digory now grows old. He's an older man, middle-aged man. And he had taken the apple because Aslan had given him an apple to give to his mom, but he told him what's going to happen. It's not going to be good. She's going to be healed and she's going to live a long life and all that. But at the same time, he explained, man, that's not the way to go. Yeah, you don't want the material benefits of the construct. You want to pass through it. So Narnia was an artificial world specifically designed to contain the witch. And the souls that go in willingly to do whatever they need to do, and then they get out. But any acts of those souls to self-perpetuate their continued presence in there is honored, but it's not good. Digory, as a young boy, chose the wisdom of not giving his mother that apple, but instead he planted it in his yard. In about 30 or 40 years later, at the very end of the book, Digory is an older man. And he built a wardrobe out of the tree from that magic apple from Narnia. And this is where we get the lion, the witch, and the wardrobe. And we still have more decodes coming up, but I'm going to end this presentation here. Give you guys some things to cogitate over. This is a deep, deep material in C.S. Lewis's books. I'm very impressed with the read. But I'm also impressed with my ability to drink a pitcher of coffee and still hold my bladder. But right now, I got to go. I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation. You have some really deep Vegas show presentations coming up, at least one. And stop sharing. I love you guys. And sorry you had to wait for this one. But the Chronicles of Narnia, we're going to go deep through all of them. And it's going to be an amazing ride. It is. Let me get this video going. I'll holler at you guys later. If I can find me a good outro. Find me a good outro here. Here we go. Later.